Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan is with us. How are you?
I'm fine, Sean. Good to be with you, buddy.
I know you probably are in a foul mood, and the reason is because I know everything that's been going on today. You and others were promised certain documents by the DOJ early this morning, and they weren't forthcoming. And now they're telling you, well, maybe next week. Well, of course, next week, the news cycle we know is going to be all Korea all the time, as the president's having a summit.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. This is par for the course for these guys. I mean, we're now at the point where you just can't trust them. I mean, Sean, we've talked about it on your show. We know they tried to hide information from us. We caught them trying to hide information from us. The conversation that Strzok and Page had about Peter Strzok's relationship with one of the FISA judges, the federal judge, Rudy Contreras, who heard the Flynn case, they tried to redact that and hide that from us. We had to go digging over DOJ to find it. They tried to hide other things from us. They went to the FISA court and didn't tell the court important facts, material facts. And now we're supposed to say, oh, but you can trust us now. We gave some members of Congress a briefing. You can trust the FBI when it comes to this spy issue. I'm just not buying it. Show us the information so we can see for ourselves.
You know, I got to tell you something. This is very frustrating because this has now gone on forever. In other words, that Devin Nunes and Freedom Caucus members and others that have been trying to get to the truth. We know crimes were committed. We know there's been abuse of power. The evidence is incontrovertible. It's not in doubt anymore. Hillary, in fact, committed crimes, and foreign agencies and intel agencies got a hold of her emails, as many as 6 in the original draft Comey and Strzok had put together. Then she obstructed when she deleted subpoenaed documents, acid washed her hard drive, and broke up into little pieces, had an aide break up her BlackBerries and other devices, and the one device they handed over to the FBI didn't have its SIM card. And I'm on the TV and radio yesterday saying, if I advise people to do that, follow the Clinton model. And there's 1,000 articles today saying, Sean Hannity is encouraging people to obstruct justice. I said, no, if you did it, you're not going to get the same result as Hillary. How stupid are these people?
Yeah, well, no, that's right. The American people understand we now have 2 standards. One set of rules for Sean Hannity, Jim Jordan, and everyone else in the country, but a different set if you're part of the politically connected establishment class in this town, and it is not supposed to work that way. Also, Sean, the ones they did finally decide that they were going to turn over, they got to sort all those emails on the front end. Cheryl Mills, Heather Samuelson, David Kendall sorted them and said, okay, here's the 30,000 we're going to give back to you. The other 30,000 we're going to keep, and they're going to do to those things what you just described. So compare that treatment to what Cohen got, to what Manafort got, getting their door kicked in at 5 a.m. I mean, that's the problem here. And now, when the DOJ says, well, we can't give you what we said we were going to give you, we can't give you the documents you subpoenaed, we're going to wait till next weweek, and we're going to give them to the gang, and all this plays out after we've caught them hiding information from us, we just don't believe them. Let's say this. Let's say the briefing that was given a week ago by the Department of Justice and the FBI to some members of Congress, let's say they were telling the truth. No one would believe them because of the track record. It's like the boy who cried wolf. We can't believe you now, even if you were telling the truth. I don't think they necessarily were, but even if you were, you couldn't believe them. So that's why we got to get the information.
Unbelievable. All right, let me go back to the IG report. And I don't know if you've been paying any attention to my shows this week, but you know what? When we didn't get the IG report, which now has been 18 long months in the making, and we didn't get it as promised in late February, March, April, May. We're now in June. And the idea that they're going to dump this on a summer Friday when everybody's out at barbecues, restaurants, and people on Fridays in the summer don't pay as much attention to news. It's just a fact. It's called a Friday document dump. It even has its own term. Or they're going to release it either Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday of next week when all the news and all the world is going to be focused on Singapore and the president and Kim Jong-un. That, too, would be an attempt to bury it. I'd rather see it the week after at this point.
Yeah, and look, how long do they have? Right now what's going on is folks at the Department of Justice and the FBI are reviewing what Mr. Horowitz put together. How long is that going to take? What kind of editing process is going on here? I mean, we know that the same thing happened with the IRS when the Inspector General, certain people at the IRS got to see that report before we did as members of Congress and before, more importantly, the American people did. How long is this going to take? So I hope we get this soon. Like you, I was hoping for it weeks ago. I hope it's early next week or as soon as possible now. But you may be right. In light of the big events coming up, maybe it's better now if we wait a few weeks.
You know, well, I don't even want to wait a few weeks. How about a week from this coming Monday? Now, I don't know who has the power to make the decision to release it. And now that 18 months has passed, and now that the DOJ, which we know has been obstructing Congress and ignoring subpoenas and lying about redactions in the name of national security, they've now had this document for 2 weeks. And I'm assuming that the same people that have been obstructing Congress are probably now harassing the Inspector General to make changes for redactions, pleading their case, modifications. And I've got to suspect, now I don't know what Horowitz is going to do. Is he going to capitulate? Is he going to water down his own report for 18 months?
Well, I hope not. And you know, I will tell you this, Michael Horowitz, I've always felt has done a good job in his role as Inspector General. I really believe that. So we'll see. But I think you're right. My guess is Rod Rosenstein's reviewing some of this stuff. My guess is some of the folks, the key people at the Department of, the FBI are reviewing some of this stuff. I don't know. Is Peter Strzok allowed to look at it? What's it going to say about him? I think he's the central figure throughout this, the Clinton investigation and the Trump-Russia investigation. So I don't know. All I know is sooner is better. Let's get the information so the American people can actually see what happened.
Well, I would like that to happen, but they don't obviously want it to happen. What's going on with Ryan? What's going on with Trey Gowdy? Again, with the track record at the FBI, I mean, when you have an organization who took a dossier, dressed it up like and made it look like it was legitimate intelligence, took it to the court and didn't tell the court two things: who paid for it and didn't tell the court the guy who wrote it had been fired by the FBI. And now we're supposed to believe you when you give us a briefing. The same group that said we're going to redact the fact that Strzok and Judge Contreras were friends and we're not going to let Congress see that. Now we're supposed to believe them, and they just accept what the briefing told them that without seeing the documents. They didn't get to see anything in that briefing. So when we're supposed to believe, the FBI said this was all above board. Really? Working with some foreigner, some spy who's talking to folks associated loosely with the Trump campaign, and we're supposed to believe that was all above board in light of all the other things we now know about the FBI? I don't buy it. I don't think the American people buy it. I don't think they do either. I want to know what happens next. Now, a lot of people maybe think, the Inspector General report took 18 months and this is going to put an end to everything. No, this is only step one. And now we have the whole FISA abuse issue and the lies I think we now have been told and spying on the Trump campaign, as you have rightly pointed out, and I have pointed out and others have pointed out. You know, the fact that they had spies in the Trump campaign, they lied to FISA court judges, not one, but 4 times. They used what even Christopher Steele, the foreign national that put together the Russian sources to create the dossier, he even said, in an interrogatory when he was facing possibility of perjury, I don't know if any of this is true. This is raw intelligence. I guess 50-50. Well, if it's 50-50, how do you get a warrant to spy on an American 4 times?
Yeah, I mean, and Sean, the one campaign who used a foreign national who communicated with Russians to get information on the other campaign, the one campaign who did all that was the Clinton campaign, for goodness sake.
I know.
And we have all this focus on, for a year now, nothing, no bit of evidence that there was coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia to impact the election. That is the part that is so frustrating. And you've got to view the spy issue in the full context. This is the same FBI who did what they did with the dossier. This is the same FBI who hid information from the Congress and therefore the American people. You got to view it all in context. So for them to say, everything's fine with this spy issue, it does not pass the smell test in any way.
It doesn't pass the smell test in any way. All right. You don't really have in Congress many more options, do you? There's basically a contempt, and that's it. What happens or impeachment?
There's contempt and impeachment. And frankly, again, if they don't give the documents, and frankly, it should have been this morning at 7:00 is what we were told yesterday that was going to happen. If they don't do that, if we get more runaround next week, then I think all these things are on the table.
Well, how do they get away with pushing it to next week? How did they get away with that?
They just say it and they just do it, and until Congress stands up and says we're not going to tolerate it. And the part that is so frustrating, Rod Rosenstein's never had his name on a ballot. The people who are that are most accountable to the voters are the ones who actually run for the job and get elected. And to have some unelected person saying we're not going to show an elected body, a separate equal branch of government, the information they need to do their oversight job that is required by the Constitution of the United States, for them to do that. This goes to the fundamentals. And when you have this kind of abuse on the fundamental issue of that unelected people are telling elected people, we're not going to let you do your job, that's the problem.
Well, I got to tell you, it's so